Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're live.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome councillors, executive leadership team, community members and council staff to tonight's ordinary council meeting. My name is Councillor Leslie Hewitt and I'm the Mayor of the Hepburn Shire Council. Hepburn Shire Council acknowledges the Dja Dja Wurrung as the traditional owners of the land and waters that we live and work on. On these lands, Dja have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We recognise their resilience through dispossession and that this is a testament to their continuing culture and tradition, which is strong and thriving. We also acknowledge the neighbouring traditional owners, the Wurundjeri to our southeast and the Wadda Wurrung to our southwest, and pay our respects to all Aboriginal peoples, their culture and law. We acknowledge their living culture and the unique role that they play in the life of this region. As we're undertaking this meeting virtually, I will read on behalf of my councillor colleagues the councillor's statement of commitment to prevent any audio feedback occurring. We, the councillors of Hepburn Shire, declare that we will undertake on every occasion to carry out our duties in the best interests of the community, and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of the Code of Good Governance so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of Hepburn Shire. Due to current restrictions, tonight's council meeting will be conducted virtually, and in the spirit of open, transparent and accountable governance, the meeting is being live streamed on council's Facebook page, and you will be able to view the proceedings of the meeting, councillor deliberations and voting. The meeting is also being recorded and will be made available on council's website as soon as practicable after the meeting. Should technology problems be encountered and we're unable to broadcast this meeting, the meeting will be adjourned until resolution or postponed until the live stream can be re-established. In accordance with Chapter 6, Section 3 of our governance rules, a person, including any representative of the media, must not operate photographic, audio or video recording equipment or any other recording device at any council meeting without first obtaining the consent of the chairperson. I also remind everyone that local government decision-making, unlike state and federal government, does not afford the benefit of parliamentary privilege, and hence no protection is afforded to councillors and council officers for comments made during meetings, which are subsequently challenged in a court of law and to be determined to be slanderous. At tonight's meeting, we'll be trialling a new process with councillors introducing some of the reports. As per the ministerial guidelines for virtual meetings, councillors are required to advise individually whether they can see and hear the proceedings and their councillor colleagues. So I'll confirm to each councillor whether they can be heard. Councillor Bray, I'll start with you. Councillor Bray, can you please confirm you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can confirm that I can see all my colleagues and I can hear proceedings.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Dryly, can you please confirm that you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I can hear proceedings and see and hear all of my colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly, and I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Simpson, can you please confirm that you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I can see all my colleagues and I can hear proceedings.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson, and I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Henderson, can you please confirm that you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues? Councillor Henderson, you're muted.
Madam Mayor, I can confirm that I can both see and hear all of my colleagues and all of the proceedings.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson, and I can confirm that I can see and hear you. Councillor Halliday, can you please confirm that you can see and hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can confirm that I can hear proceedings and see and hear all of my councillor colleagues.
Councillor Hood, can you please confirm that you can hear proceedings and see and hear all of your colleagues?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I can confirm that I can see and hear all of my colleagues and proceedings.
And I can confirm that I can see and hear all of my councillor colleagues. Item 3 on the agenda is apologies. Mr. Thomas, do we have any apologies for tonight's meeting?
No, Madam Mayor, no apologies for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. I'd now like to introduce council officers who are present in this council meeting. Mr. Bradley Thomas, the Chief Executive Officer. Mr. Andrew Burgess, the Director of Organisational Services. Ms. Lee McCallum, the Director of Community and Development. Mr. Bruce Lucas, the Director of Infrastructure and Delivery. Mr. Chris White, our ICT Manager. And Ms. Kristen Forte, our Manager of People and Governance. Item 4 is the declaration of conflicts of interest. As required at any other meeting of council, council laws must declare a conflict of interest at the start of the meeting and leave the meeting when the item is presented to council. Councillors will be required to leave the meeting and return when the meeting has been resolved. Throughout the meeting, if any councillor realises that they have an interest, they can declare it at that point and follow the same procedures. Councillors, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare? No, thank you. Officers that are present, I now ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented before council tonight. No, thank you. Item 5 on the agenda is the confirmation of previous meeting minutes. Councillors, I have a recommendation before us to adopt meeting minutes from council's previous council meetings. The recommendation is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 21st of September 2021, as previously circulated to all of us, be confirmed. I'm in search of a motion. I have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Henderson.
Mayor, I move the officer's recommendation with the additional words that Councillor Henderson submitted a verbal report, but not a written report.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bray, thank you. I'm going to put this motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand. Councillor Henderson, Councillor Bray, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly and Councillor Hewitt. All those against the motion, please raise your hand. Councillor Hood. I declare that the motion is carried. Item 6, notices of motion. There are no notices of motion that have been submitted for tonight's meeting. Item 7 is the items of urgent business. Are there any items of urgent business? No, in which case we'll move on to item 8, which is the presentation of councillor reports. And I'd just like to start with mine. I think it's starting to sound a little like Groundhog Day, but since the last council meeting, Hepburn Shire has still been operating under COVID restrictions, and that, of course, has continued to cause differences in the way we operate, with many changes to meetings, cancellations of some events because of uncertainties introduced by the COVID restrictions, and the restructure of other events. The positive news is that a clear roadmap has been announced by the state government, and also for Hepburn Shire, the news that as of today, just over 94% of our residents who are eligible have had their first vaccination dose. In previous mayor's reports, I've talked about the impact on our businesses and on our children and on our community. And tonight I'd just like to report another sobering thought that I became aware of by representing the Shire at a Respect Victoria webinar on elder abuse, was the increase in rural and regional areas of elder abuse by family members, which has been exacerbated by COVID. This feeds into something that all councillors were involved in during the last month, which was videoing the leadership video against family violence. It's something that is part of council's agenda to look at preventing family violence in the Shire, and it was a timely reminder of understanding how widespread family violence can be. The other thing that I would just like to particularly call out or mention is, again, as changes, just to note that we conducted a citizenship ceremony during the month, and that had to be virtual, which is perhaps not the way everyone would have wanted to do it. But on behalf of all of us in the Shire, I welcome those 2 new citizens. I would also like to mention the Creswick New Residents, meeting, which again showed the flexibility that our community members, councillors and staff do by quickly reorganising and changing the venue to make it not just COVID safe and weather compliant as well. Councillor Hood and I were involved, along with officers and many people from other agencies, in a storm recovery meeting for those impacted on the Shire, and that also had to be virtual, which perhaps impacted on the number of people attended. But it does show the kinds of things that or the difficulties that we've all been trying to manage to continue to deliver both as councillors and council officers to the community. You'll be able to read more later about this in the annual plan that we're doing, but I would also just like to make mention, as many of you are aware, the Daylesford Hospital Upgrade Committee managed to raise $100,000 from the community, so the master plan for that upgrade is going ahead at full steam, and that again is testament to the resilience and generosity of the community. That's all from me tonight, so thank you. Our next report is from Councillor Brian Hood from Colaban Ward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the interest of efficiency, I won't read out my report at this meeting tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Councillor Simpson. You're muted, Councillor Simpson.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. Please see my councillor report as I will table.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll also table a report. I'll just pick out a couple of highlights. It was a great pleasure to attend the official opening of the Hepburn Pavilion unisex change rooms for the Hepburn Football and Netball Club and the Hepburn Cricket Club at the Laurie Sullivan Reserve. It was great to see the members of the clubs and the committees there at the launch. They worked really hard, raised $100,000 to contribute towards the building, along with funding from Hepburn Shire and the Victorian Government. So the new change rooms will be a great benefit to players, umpires and the whole community, and they'll be more inclusive and accessible for people of all genders and abilities. Both Minister Thomas and Mayor Hewitt paid tribute to the efforts of the clubs and the community for their significant fundraising efforts and wish them well for a fresh start for the season for next year. I also was able to attend the Integrated Water Management Plan input sessions where we looked, Central Highland Water are looking to review their management plan. With fellow councillors, we're able to discuss ways to better protect our waterways, groundwater, wastewater management, and find suitable solutions for managing stormwater and provide fresh and clean drinking water. It was quite a productive session. Central Highlands Water, leading the plan, and Hepburn Shire are key stakeholders. And also very excited to be able to visit the composting facility at the Creswick Transfer Station, which is processing the organic food and green waste from Clunes Fogo Green Bin trial. I'm sure other councillors would like to report on that, so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Dryeley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have tabled my report and I'll just briefly mention a few things. Just call out to everyone who's been locked down again over another month, and that that there has been a continuing toll on our mental and emotional reserves, but there is glimmer of hope coming forward with the reopening, and fingers crossed that we can look forward to being out in the community and in our home, having people in our homes in the coming weeks, albeit in a continuing limited fashion. Similarly, I went to the events that Councillor Bray's mentioned, and in particular, I'm proud to have done the interview for the Prevention of Violence Against Women and Children leadership statement. And I attended the Creswick New Residents Welcome event. Yesterday, we were fortunate to visit the Creswick Waste Transfer Station to look at in-vessel composting units, and it's great to see that they're up and running, and that we've got a lot to discuss and to work through in terms of the rollout of the FOGO in the coming months. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. Councillor Halliday.
Madam Mayor, it's starting to sound a little bit repetitive as we've all been to the similar things, but hopefully what I say will be slightly different. I did want to talk about how exciting it was to see the what was coming through to the Creswick Waste Facility, what it looks like prior, then seeing the process in vessel, and then seeing the product that's coming out the other side. And it seemed like quite a simple process. It was much simpler than I expected. I'd like to congratulate the community on the improvements they've made as far as reducing contamination, but I also wanted to encourage everyone to think about what you're putting in your FOGO bins, because the less contamination we have in there, the more likely that it's going to be a cost neutral program for our community. But it is getting better, so keep up the good work, but yeah, keep the plastic out of your FOGO bin. Other than that, I also just wanted to say it was great to be part of the integrated water management plan process. Hoping some really great initiatives can come out of that, especially looking at how we can plan to treat storm water on its way into our creeks, and help with development to ensure there's less contamination into the ground, the streams, and the groundwater. It's a big process, but if you haven't gotten on board and you're interested, I'm sure there's still slots available to speak to the consultants at Central Highlands Water, but it's definitely a worthwhile project, and one that a lot of us are excited about. And I think I'll leave it there before I get the ding.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. Councillor Henderson.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too attended the new residents welcome in Creswick, where new residents were apprised of some of the opportunities open to them as residents in our community. The historic Pascoe site in Albert Street has come to life, with the latest addition being a garden centre, and the owner tells me that locals have made the business very welcome, and there's been an excellent patronage. It's pleasing to see some tenders being considered for works in Creswick at tonight's meeting. Some of these projects have been around for many years and will be a welcome addition to the amenity. Creswick people have shown amazing patience, I must say. In what can only be described as an act of sheer destruction, hundreds of plants have been destroyed at Park Lake Botanical Reserve in Creswick. These trees and shrubs are part of an Indigenous planting and were bought and planted by a community group to mark 160 years of the park precinct, and it is not believed to be the work of children. There are many distressed farmers and rural residents as AusNet have ramped up their entry to properties along the route of the proposed transmission lines. I've made sure that federal members as well as state ministers are aware of some of the tactics being used to gain entry to properties. We have and should continue to do all we can to support the residents in this battle. There is a great deal of mental stress and anguish as farmers see their very living and production on their farms threatened. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I have a recommendation that Council receives and notes the Mayor's and Councillors' reports. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Simpson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Halliday. I'm going to put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Henderson, Councillor Bray, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Hood and myself, Councillor Hewitt. The motion is carried. Item 8.3, the Chief Executive Officer's report. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too will have tabled my CEO's report, which is included in the agenda and details a number of the activities undertaken in the last month. Just two in particular, I just wanted to highlight. One is being considered later on this afternoon, this evening by Council, and that will be the noting of our annual report 2020-2021. And just really say a massive thank you to both the community, the councillors and our staff for the fantastic effort in terms of delivery of services, projects and initiatives over the last 12 months. And they're highlighted in our annual report. And I do encourage people to take the 5 minutes to sort of flick through the annual report and see some of the activities that have been undertaken in this 12 months, which has been particularly challenging given we continue to deal with the COVID pandemic and also the storm activities in June, while we've also introduced a new councillor bunch, inductions and worked through the Headburn Together project. And the other important thing I really wanted to highlight and thank our staff for in particular is obviously the encouragement by not just the council but also by state government in terms of undertaking the vaccination for COVID. All council staff are now required as compulsory and mandatory vaccination as well. And I just say a big thank you to the staff that have been really supportive as we work through that. Obviously, I understand it's a challenge for people, but really encouraged by the rates of vaccination that we see in the community as well. So there is an officer's recommendation before you tonight to accept the CEO's report for the month of October.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. So we have the officer's recommendation. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Dryly moved, Councillor Simpson seconder. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Henderson, Councillor Bray, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Hood and myself, Councillor Hewitt. The motion is carried. Item 9 on the agenda is public participation time. Item 9.1, we have no petitions have been received ahead of tonight's meeting. Item 9.2, questions. We have 9 public questions that have been received for tonight's meeting. And I want to take the opportunity to thank all of those residents who have contributed the questions. Our first question is from Trevor Armstrong, and I'll read it out. Has Council received the draft report of the Local Government Inspectorate into the REX project? If so, when was the draft report received? As it is now more than 2 years since the matter was referred to the Inspectorate by Council, when can the residents and ratepayers of the Shire expect to have the report made public? Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. The Victorian Local Government Inspectorate is undertaking this investigation. The Inspectorate is independent of Council, and the investigation and the release of any report is the responsibility of the Inspectorate. And assure everybody, Council is in regular contact with the Victorian Local Government Inspectorate. However, given the nature of the review, these questions will need to be referred to the Inspectorate to respond to. Question 2 is from David Moore and Kate McRae. If the Council, as part of the Integrated Water Management Strategy, writes to the Colaburn Water, the Central Highlands Water and Goulburn Murray Water Authorities and the North Central Catchment Management Authority, asking for statistics over the last 15 years that would represent how surface and groundwater is being depleted or otherwise during this period, will the Sustainable future of surface and groundwater resources be assured if the new Hepburn Shire planning scheme explicitly limits or qualifies water use, in particular, the interplay with the Water Act 1989. Thank you, Mr. Moore and Ms. McRae. Council has previously written to Goulburn Murray Water seeking details of groundwater monitoring. In response, Goulburn Murray Water advised the importance of long-term sustainability of groundwater resources in the Daylesford Mineral Springs region is recognised in the Central Victorian Mineral Springs Groundwater Management Act, Local Management Plan 2013. Groundwater levels are monitored through State Observation Bore network access across 47 separate sites in the plan, including 17 sites within a 5-kilometre radius of Daylesford. Goulburn Murray Water have advised of receipt of requests for historical data, and Council will continue to advocate for sustainable use of our groundwater resources. As you may be aware, Council is also a key stakeholder in the preparation of an integrated water management strategy, which is being led by Central Highlands Water for the towns of Clunes, Creswick and Daylesford. This strategy considers all water values, including water catchment, stormwater drainage and infrastructure, potable water, domestic wastewater and alternative water sources. The Hepburn Planning Scheme has recently been reviewed and is currently with the Minister of Planning with the intent to strengthen its water catchment protection through the Environmental Significance Overlay, ESO. The ESO triggers most planning applications received to be referred to the relevant authority for assessment, advice and sometimes determination. Council will continue to advocate, as it's doing, and seek funding for further this work to protect our precious water resources. Question 3 is also from David Moore and Kate McRae. Will Council write to the Victorian Government to provide proper notice and appeal provisions in the Water Act 1989, prioritising use of water as a productive resource rather than for sale, and regulate water mining under the Planning and Environmental Act? Council, and our response is, Council will continue to advocate and seek funding to further protect our precious water resources. However, it is the Water Authority's responsibility to manage the commercialisation of water. Using the planning scheme is limited to its extent of management of these issues. Thank you, Mr. Moore and Ms. McRae. Question 4 is from Elizabeth Burns, and I'll read it out. As a farmer heavily impacted by the recent storms over 3 months ago, I'm concerned that none of many support services are able to help farmers with damaged boundary fences with stock containment. Can Hepburn Shire Council please explain why they're unable to help farmers, given that the planning scheme and the council vision supports protecting our valuable agricultural land? Thank you, Ms. Burns. Council is committed to protecting prime agricultural land, as you've recognised, and note your questions relates to support for the agricultural sector following the June 2021 storm event. Our role in emergency management is to support the lead agencies and to support community with recovery and repairs of critical infrastructure and council assets. We acknowledge that there are many affected property owners that have been significantly impacted. As much as we would like to assist and support all property owners with their respective recovery efforts, unfortunately, Council is not equipped to support and fund this approach. Council is only able to be reimbursed for works on critical infrastructure, and as a result, will have a significant funding shortfall from the storm recovery works. Whilst property owners no doubt consider their individual needs and risks against insurance options, further support can also be requested from Bushfire Recovery Victoria if there are specific concerns. Our recovery team continues to undertake significant effort to implement the recovery program, and we're certainly advocating to all agencies and state government about this further support needed by property owners. This has included an option for blaze aid. Council's last advice from business from Bushfire Recovery Victoria was that Blaze Aid was not able to establish a camp in Hepburn Shire. One of the ways Council is supporting the agricultural sector is through the 3-year Artisan Agriculture Project to support the sector and mitigate many of the barriers that the small-scale agriculture sector face. In addition, as part of our strategic planning program, Council is committed to further strengthening agricultural land in Hepburn. This work will be undertaken through the Land Demand and Supply Assessment and Agricultural and Rural Settlement Report. Question 5 is also from Elizabeth Burns. My next question relates to building resilient communities to deal with the next emergency, which could well be a wildfire. Given many people with whom I've had contact with have expressed issues with neighbours that increase their stress with the impacts of the storm. With counselling services already stretched to the breaking point with COVID-19, it would make sense to explore other methods of providing mental health support. What functions does the Community Safety Officer play in building resilient and supportive communities? The Council's response. As you all appreciate, mental health support is a specialist field requiring professional training and experience. Our storm recovery team do have a number of caseworkers who are working with partners to support community in the recovery process. These support mechanisms are designed to ensure impacted community members can access these services readily. The Community Safety Officer role focuses on ensuring our community environment is safe and includes functions like identifying fire hazards in the lead up to the fire season, considering local law permits and compliance, animal management, and they're not able to provide mental health support to the community. The Municipal Emergency Management Plan does identify the importance of building resilient communities, and all agencies partner to achieve this through raising awareness, community conversations, recoveries and learning from past events, and keeping communities informed of the most recent emergency management information. Thank you, Ms. Burns, for your 2 questions. Question 6 is from Nikki Marshall. I was one of a number of residents who welcomed the opportunity to submit feedback on the draft Community Vision and Council Plan. We, as a group, also requested that second drafts be made available for community response prior to final adoption. I do appreciate that a lot of work has gone into these documents and that Council is working within tight timelines. Given there won't be an opportunity to make comment to questions, nor to recommend changes to the Community Vision and Council Plan between public release of the documents later this week and the special Council meeting scheduled for next week, October the 26th, my questions are asked in a spirit of hopefulness. Will the final vision statement and focus area clearly articulate the rural nature of our Shire and include a strong emphasis on farming and on valuing our rich food growing soil and access to water? Thank you, Ms. Marshall. All submissions will be considered by councillors and a decision made by council as to whether or not there will be any change made to the Community Vision and Council Plan at the special meeting of council on Tuesday, the 26th of October. The submitters will be provided with a written response once council's made their decision. Question 7, also from Nikki Marshall. COVID lockdowns have highlighted the importance of localisation, of drawing more directly on locally grown food and other essentials, of strengthening our resilience and our interconnectedness. In what ways do the Community Vision and Council plans strengthen localisation, for example, through the creation of a local or regional food hub and processing area? Our response, Council is currently undertaking a 3-year artisan agriculture project to support the sector and mitigate many of the barriers that the small-scale agriculture sector face. 2 of the key barriers include providing better access to shared infrastructure and market distribution channels, and raising the profile of the Hepburn Shire and the Greater Central Highlands artisan agriculture producers more broadly. Through this project, council officers, together with the Project Advisory Committee, are currently investigating opportunities for both an online and physical food hub. This is still at concept stage and with both officers and Project Advisory Committee members currently researching opportunities. Question 8 was from Sandeepa Gould. I understand it is a lot of work to prepare the agendas, but it should be a matter of planning to have it completed a bit earlier. And this seems a reasonable request that would go towards community and council mutual respect if Hepburn could achieve this. Can council and councillors please consider to make council meeting agendas be made public earlier than just the Friday before? Thank you, Ms. Gould. Council acknowledges the community's keen interest in council meeting agendas, including officers' reports and recommendations to council. The preparation of reports for the agenda aligned to a set review and approval process with associated deadlines that allows council staff and management to ensure that reports are prepared accordingly for each council meeting. For the remainder of 2021, the agenda preparation process will remain as the status quo, which is being published on a Friday prior to a Tuesday council meeting. To ensure that the reports are currently in the pipeline for council meetings continue to be prepared in line with officer deadlines and workloads. However, consideration will be factored into agenda preparation for 2022 to determine a way forward. Thank you, Ms. Gould. Question 9, our final question for tonight. The protection of agricultural land from competing with non-agricultural development is seen as a way council can contribute to supporting food producing jobs and opportunity into the future, since land affordability is cited by stakeholders as a main barrier inhibiting smaller and mid-sized growers. But can our council work with members of the community in supporting an initiative for local food and agriculture, including a food hub and processing area? And yes, council is committed to the ongoing protection of agricultural land. This is also consistent with the state government's protection of agricultural land and Melbourne's Food Bowl. As part of our strategic planning program, we have identified the need for further land investigations to ensure we continue to strengthen protection of agricultural land. This commences with our land demand and supply assessment, which reviews all of Hepburn's zones and determines where we have an undersupply and oversupply of each zone. We will then undertake our agricultural and rural settlement report, which will further strengthen the protection of agricultural land and focus in development into appropriate residential, commercial and industrial areas. As I've mentioned in response to the 2 previous questions, we're committed to protecting prime agricultural land, and that's evidenced through the work currently being undertaken by Council's strategic planner, but also through the Artisan Agriculture Project. One of the key focus areas for this project is to increase awareness of competing land use pressures on the sector to local governments and also and the state government. This project is currently investigating opportunities for a local food hub. That's the end of our questions for tonight, and I would again like to just thank all those community members who've taken the time to put their questions in. Item 9.3, we've received 1 request to address council at tonight's meeting. And so now, Mr. White, through you, I invite Mr. David Smith to speak regarding the road naming at Newland North, which is on the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just admit David Smith into the room.
Mr. Smith did speak to me earlier and was concerned that he may not have the bandwidth to get in, but
You can see him. We're just waiting for his audio to connect.
Yeah.
Are we there?
Right, Mr. Smith, we can see you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes.
That's good.
Yep. Can you hear me?
We can. So thank you for coming to talk to us, and over to you.
Right.
Have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm speaking on regarding the naming of the government road at Newland North. In keeping with road names around the area, I suggest Stevens Road. Many roads in the Newland area have been named after long-term families, and I consider this should be an ongoing tradition. Example, Yelland Road. The Yelland came to Newland and he named the town of Newland. He come from Cornwall in the UK, and he named the town Newland. He was there very early. Miles Road. Miles has run the State Bank at Newland when I was a young fellow. Ryries Road, the farmers in the area. Shay Road, which is just right in, Shays live right near this road in question on the opposite side. Bells Road, Bells farmed the land in that area. Inverarity Lane, Inverarities were the butchers and the bakers. Prunties Road, a farmer toward Hepburn's Lagoon, right down on the Thingo, near the lagoon. Bradshaw Court up at Blampede. Mackay Road, which is the road you drive on to go to the Newland Sporting Complex. And Ryan Lane, which is just around on the Forest Hill Road. These are all long-term residents of the area. My reasons for Stevens Road are Stevens is 5th generation in the area and still residing in the area. Stevens is local link dating back more than 150 years, still living and working for the community of Newland. History, Stevens is to the Newland area. William Stevens was born in the UK and came to Newland and passed away at Sutton Park Estate in 1907. William had one son, J.B. Stevens, who in turn had 2 children. Son William, born at Mount Prospect in 1898, and a daughter, Eileen Ann, born at Creswick in 1903. Stevens owned Sutton Park at Newland, 1,800 acres, the biggest land holding in the Newland area at the time, which he bought from James Fry, which was a very big flour miller in the area. He had mills at Ballarat, Smeaton, and way up into the Wimmera. He had several flour mills. And on September the 6th, 1918, the Closer Settlement Board purchased Sutton Park Estate from J.P. Stevens and placed 17 returned World War I soldiers and their families on Sutton Park Estate to start a farming life. And there's a monument being erected in support, with the support of the Hepburn Shire Council, at the entrance to Sutton Park on the 19th of October in 2008. In my opinion, I consider naming the road in question, Stevens Road, would be a fitting tribute to the largest landowner in the Newland area and what part they play in the Newland area at the moment. Newland, as in football, CFA, sporting events, hall committees, church, and in later years, the Newland complex, in which the late Max Stevens was the prime mover and worked endlessly in raising funds required for the complex. So I might add that that complex was only passed at a meeting of the Creswick Shire Council by a casting vote of the mayor to get that on the way. And it was built mainly by contributions from the district. Very little government money.
Mr. Smith, you could.
I don't think you should take into consideration that Dominic and Cara Stevens just happened to live on the road in question. It's more about the Stevens history in the Newland area, which goes back more than 150 years. I believe the Yateses, which is another name that's been suggested, came along later. For your information also, George Yates married Eva Stevens, which makes it probably more in favour of Stevens. I trust the council will consider my submission when making their decision, and I thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, and I've just jumped in now. I believe we might have lost Madam Mayor Leslie Hewitt. We'll just take a break there. Request a short break while we get Madam Mayor reconnected. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for that.
Should be connecting now.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We have Madam Mayor back.
Okay, apologies for that. I lost connection. The internet just
Dropped out. These things happen, unfortunately. So, Madam Mayor, Mr. Smith has finished his speech presentation to councillors. You may wish to ask councillors if they have any questions of Mr. Smith.
Yes, I certainly
That matter.
certainly will. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for your history of the Stevens connection to Newland. Do any of my fellow councillors have questions of Mr. Smith? No? In which case, I'll thank you again, Mr. Smith, for your presentation, which has been very helpful for councillors in understanding the Stevens family connection to the area. And we appreciate you taking the time to do that. So thank you. Mr. White will now remove you from the meeting. Thanks. Okay, so item 10.1 is the Hepburn Hub at the Rex October update. And I'd like to invite Mr. Bruce Lucas to introduce the report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening to you and to councillors. Councillors, this report is a standard report that comes forward each month now for a significant project that we're delivering, being the Hepburn Hub at the Rex project. And the purpose of this report is to allow council to continue to monitor the progress of the report against the project scope and budget as previously approved by council. Councillors, I'll take the report as read. By and large, the only milestone worth highlighting this month is that we have commenced a new procurement process, and tenders through that process closed last Friday, and officers are now or have now convened a tender evaluation panel, and we're just in the beginning stages of undertaking a comprehensive evaluation of the tender submissions received. We would anticipate that a full report will be presented to the November council meeting for council to consider awarding a contract. There is an officer's recommendation, councillors, on page 15.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Does any councillors have any questions of Mr. Lucas on that matter, on the Rex, on his report? Councillor Bray?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe in that report, Mr. Lucas, you mentioned there were a number of sustainability elements that may be considered in the tendering process. Can you give us an indication of how that would work in understanding how that may impact on the tendering process?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Bray, through the tender process, we did include a number of options to be priced up as part of the tender process. So there were 4 options to be priced, and 2 of them relate specifically to sustainability initiatives. So one is around the installation of a solar panel system on the facility, a 20 kilowatt system on the building, and that's being priced as a tender option. And there is a second tender option, which is to replace what was originally proposed as gas boilers, to replace them with a heat pump, to look at an electric sort of powering of the facility in full. Those 2 options have been priced by the tenders that council have received. We'll evaluate them and we'll bring them back to council to consider whether council wishes to take up those options in the progression of the building, should you wish to award a contract at all.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Councillor Bray, is that fine? Thank you. Any other questions of Mr. Lucas? In which case, I have an officer's recommendation that council receives and notes the October 2021 project update report regarding the Hepburn Hub at the Rex project, notes that a new procurement process is in progress, 3 notes that an expression of interest has commenced for community members to participate in the project reference group. And 4 notes that monthly reporting to council and the community will continue. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved, Councillor Hood. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dryly. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Anyone wish to speak against it? Then Councillor Hood, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Dryly?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
In which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Henderson, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Hood, Councillor Bray, Councillor Halliday, and myself, Councillor Hewitt, and the motion is carried. Item 10.2 is the Central Springs Master Plan update. Councillor Bray, could you introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We are trying a new strategy in council meetings to have councillors present some of the reports. So I will kick off with the Central Springs Master Plan update. This report provides a summary of the master plan development for Central Springs Reserve, Daylesford. For those of you who don't know where that is, it's part of the Lake Daylesford precinct. The master plan provides a direction for the future improvement of Central Springs Reserve, incorporating Indigenous and European elements and feedback from the community. These improvements may be funded by the Mineral Springs Reserve account, external funding, or general council budget. A range of council officers have been involved in the project, a working group to shape the development of the master plan. This has been enhanced by engagement with the community, the Mineral Springs Reserve Advisory Committee, Daylesford Rotary and Friends of Lakes Daylesford, and Jara and DELP. This is a very detailed and thorough plan, and the community groups that have input were very happy with the process and with the way that it's turned out. I just also wanted to add that we note that there are no accessible toilets close to the reserve in the master plan, but the plan makes note of this and suggests that toilets should be considered at some later stage. This is an important way to protect waterways and mineral springs. And so as councillors, we'd be looking to keep the accessible toilets in mind during a design and development phase of this project, and we'll continue to work for a solution by assessing the needs of Lake Daylesford as a whole.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Appreciate you being the first cab off the rank in our new process. Does anyone have any councillors have any questions about this report, about the Central Springs Master Plan update? In which case, I have an officer's recommendation that council adopts the Central Springs Reserve Master Plan. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved, Councillor Simpson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Henderson. Councillor Simpson, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say that this is a very exciting project. The area at the moment is very run down and weed infested. It's going to give disabled access to the mineral springs, and there will be disabled parking in the new car park. Council, now that we will have this plan in place, we'll be able to apply for grants, and also it'll be in a position for any other funding that might be able to become available.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. No, you're muted, Councillor Henderson.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Against the motion? Then I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, raise your hand. Councillor Halliday, Councillor Bray, Councillor Hood, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Henderson, and myself, Councillor Hewitt. Item 10.3, the naming of an unnamed road in Newland North. Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I get the easy one, I see. The naming of an unnamed road in Newland North, and the report's been compiled by our officers and has been given to the council by Mr. Andrew Burgess, who's the Director of Organisational Services. And in summary, the council received a request to name a road in Newland North that is currently unnamed, and we've undertaken community consultation to consider the naming options. The council initially proposed the name Volcanic Hills Road and advertised the name in accordance with the Geographic Names Victoria Guide. Initial consultation was conducted and there were 8 submissions. 4 residents suggested either Stevens Road or Stevens Lane, and this was the only name submitted that had more than 1 submission. It seems there wasn't much appetite, Madam Mayor, for Volcanic Hills Road. The council then determined that we needed a bit more consultation on the matter, and we put it out again for advertising, and a lot better response on the second round. We got 14 submissions being received, a total of 17 submitters. The original name Volcanic Hills Road was again rejected by all submitters, and there were 8 letters of support received for 8 Yates Road from 9 submitters, and 1 letter of support received for Torpies Road. There were 5 letters of support for Stevens Road. So, Madam Mayor, we've got the report before you, and we need to make a decision on the naming of this road. I must say that both of the Yates and Stevens family put in very detailed and comprehensive reasons as to why a particular road should be named after their family. There's only 1 road and there are 2 families, and I think that, you know, very, very deserving, both of them, but it's up to council to make a decision. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Does any councillor have any question about the report? In which case, I have a recommendation before us. The officer's recommendation is that council adopts the name, adopts the name Yates Road, the unnamed road in Newland North, and Stevens Road be recorded as the name for future unnamed roads in the area. 2, lodges the naming proposal with the Office of Geographic Names seeking endorsement and registration of the name. And 3, following registration, notifies the relevant local organisations and stakeholders of the new road name. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Simpson, seconded Councillor Hood. Apart from the move and second, do any councillors wish to speak in favour of the motion? Okay, and do any councillors wish to speak against the motion? In which case, Councillor Simpson, as the mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hood, as the seconder, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just to note that as Councillor Henderson said in the introduction, both of these families are long-standing local residents, have made worthwhile community contributions. I support the officer's recommendation because it also leaves open the strong possibility that the name Stevens will be attached to another unnamed road around Newland in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Councillor Halliday?
Madam Mayor, I am in support of this motion, but I did want to thank the community for both of their submissions, and I do agree that you're both equally good candidates for naming the road. I just wanted to explain that the reason I feel that Stevens Road would be better for another road is that it would create a precedent that if you build a road, you might get it named after you. And you may or may not know, but this has been turned down previously for other people wanting to name a road after themselves. And I think it's important not to, for people to expect that if they've built a road that it be named after them. But hopefully there'll be another road named Stevens Road in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. Councillor Dryly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I too would like to reiterate some of the comments that councillors have made already, but also just to acknowledge the enormous amount of work that officers have put into this, above and beyond perhaps what we'd normally expect for naming of a road, and that considerable resources have gone into this issue to achieve a result that represents an acceptable solution to a pretty complex set of problems in the end, and acknowledging that there has been some concern over the rights of family to naming a particular patch. And I'd just like to also mention that there are many people who contribute in various undeclared ways in the community, and that they all deserve recognition, and that naming of a road doesn't come as a right to anyone necessarily. And in particular, even thinking about the broader perspective of ownership and tradition around land and traditional owners, and that we're all only on this patch for a very limited time, and that that naming is, it's an honour, and it's not necessarily reflective of everyone in the community who's contributing. But I acknowledge that there is a place for naming and roads after historical and family links.
Thanks, Councillor Dryly. Does any other councillor wish to speak to it? Against? In which case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, raise your hand. Councillor Henderson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Bray, Councillor Hood and myself, Councillor Hewitt, and the motion is carried. Thank you everyone who responded from the community, and thank you officers for your diligent background work on this. Item 10.4 is the awarding of a contract for the Trentham Sports Ground Reserve Pavilion redevelopment. Councillor Hood, can I ask you to introduce this report, please?
Yes, certainly, Madam Mayor, and it gives me great pleasure to present this officer's report to award a construction contract. This is a terribly important project for the Trentham community, and like most communities, the sporting facilities are exceptionally important, not only for the sporting clubs that use them, but the general members of the public. It gives a sense of community, and it's terribly important for the health and well-being of people. This particular project is going to upgrade the building facilities, and I can certainly assure my colleagues that that is much needed. The facilities are currently very outdated. So this will benefit male, female participants, people of all ages, the football, cricket and netball clubs. Officers have gone to the market, and it's pleasing to see that they received 4 bids. Those bids have now been evaluated. We already know from earlier in the year that a substantial state government grant was secured to fund this project. And we do now have a recommendation before us to appoint a qualified and suitable contractor to carry out this work. So I commend the officer's report to my colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Are there any questions of the officers, councillors, about this report? Then I have an officer's recommendation that Council 1 award the contract number HEPBU.RFT 2021.135 for the fixed lump sum of $1,871,847, exclusive of GST to Forefront Construction. 2, that the Chief Executive Officer be delegated to sign the contract documents on behalf of Council. And 3, that contract variations be delegated to the financial delegate for each variation up to a cumulative variation amount of 10% of the original contract sum. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Hood, seconded Councillor Henderson. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion or against the motion? Councillor Hood, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Only to comment, Madam Mayor, that again, this project was developed in line with our community engagement policy, in that not only were the 3 sporting clubs engaged in the consultation process to design these facilities, so too was the broader community. So it's very much a well-supported project.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Councillor Henderson?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Madam Mayor, Trentham has been perhaps at the end of the Shire sometimes, or perhaps they've felt like they are over the years. And through no fault of the Hepburn Shire, there is not much infrastructure that's actually was owned by council over many years. And so every dog has his day. We saw the development down at Creswick of the Doug Lindsay Reserve. We then saw Victoria Park, and now we're getting around to doing the one at Trentham, which is long overdue. Anyone that's visited there would see the standard of it. I think probably the worst one was Victoria Park, but it was third world. But we're now in the 21st century, and I think it's the turn of Trentham, and I'm sure others will follow. Other sports ground we've heard earlier on. We've seen upgrades in Councillor Bray's report down at Hepburn at the ground there, and the facilities do include those for women, and disabled people will also be catered for, which is something that our council hasn't thought much about in the past. So it's good to see that these things come to fruition. We'd love to build a sports ground in every town every year, but we just aren't able to do that. So I commend this to my colleagues and thank those members in the community for their patience and for their being involved in working towards getting this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Okay, there being no one else wants to speak to the motion? No one indicated they wanted, so I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Dryly, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Bray, Councillor Hood, Councillor Henderson and myself, Councillor Hewitt. The motion is carried. Item 10.5, awarding of a contract, the Doug Lindsay Recreation Reserve Circuit Path and Car Park construction. Councillor Dryly, would you like to introduce this report, please?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity. This item is for the awarding of a contract, a tender for Doug Lindsay Recreation Reserve Circuit Path and Car Park construction. And this is a really important project for our community in Creswick. It's such a rich tapestry of life down there at the Doug Lindsay Reserve. There's so many different activities happening there every weekend, and some really great facilities on offer for our community. And this is the next puzzle in the piece of the development of that site. It's really great that we're able to offer this tender. So in detail, the contract brings together 3 individual projects, and we're looking at one, a circuit path, a car park and drainage works. The circuit path is a local roads and community infrastructure funded project for delivery of a 1.2 kilometre walking circuit with pedestrian links to 3 of Doug Lindsay Reserve entry points. The project allows for park furniture installation and landscaping. The car park project will formalise the main parking area between the football pavilion and the soccer netball pavilion. Drainage works will occur on the boundary and across the car park in accordance with the drainage design report for the entire reserve. So, as I said, the purpose of this report is for Council to award a contract in construction of the Doug Lindsay Reserve Circuit Path and Car Park 2021-22. The tender for these works was invited by a public advertisement on Council's website and have been evaluated by the Tender Evaluation Panel in accordance with Council's procurement policy. The recommended tenderer comes with strong references and support. Although JNR Civil has operated for 6 years, they have an experienced management team. They have committed to providing local content where possible in areas of quarry products, landscaping, site fencing, and amenities and traffic management. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. Do any councillors have any questions of the officers about this matter? No? In which case, I have an officer's recommendation that Council 1 awards contract number HEPBU.RFT 2021.206, construction of the Doug Lindsay Reserve Circuit Path and Car Park at Creswick for the fixed price of $253,943.60, exclusive of GST, to JNR Civil Pty Limited. For 2, delegates the Chief Executive Officer to sign and seal the contract of documents on behalf of Council, and 3, resolves that the tender evaluation report and matrix as attached remain confidential. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Halliday, moved. Councillor Dryly, seconded. Does any councillor wish to speak in favour of this motion? Councillor Henderson, thank you. Any councillor wish to speak against? No, in which case, Councillor Halliday, as the mover of the motion, do you want to speak to it?
No, thank you. I'll leave it up to Don. Thank you.
Councillor Dryly, do you wish to, as the seconder, add any more?
I've said my piece on this, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, the Doug Lindsay Reserve was built just after the flood events and has served the community very, very well. Anyone who visits it thinks, oh, what's happened here? We haven't finished this project. It doesn't have much around it other than the oval and the ground. And of course, we've got the bowls club and soccer club been added onto it. But anyone who knows the area will know how much this will activate the area. It'll encourage walkers. Doug Lindsay Reserve is quite isolated, and this will actually increase the visitation of other people, walkers and so on around the place, provide better security, and it will be amenity not just for those ball sports and other things, but it will provide an added activity for the people of Creswick. So it's a really good project. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. There being no other debate, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Councillor Henderson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Hood, Councillor Simpson, and myself, Councillor Hewitt. I declare the motion is carried. Item 10.6, also the awarding of a contract, public amenity upgrade, construction phase 1 at Cullenbean Park. Councillor Henderson, can I ask you please to introduce this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, we have an executive summary which is before you, and it tells us what the works are. There's some structural rectification to the building and completing new internal layout and fixtures to make 2 accessible public toilets, accessible parking space and accessible path to the toddlers pool. The tender for these works was invited via public advertisement through the council's online tender portal, and there's a detailed evaluation and recommendation there. But just a bit of a history to this, and we'll talk about in my report people being patient. When I got onto council in 2008, it wasn't long after we had a look at the toilets down at Cullenbean Park, and every councillor from around the Shire on the bus tour said this is a project we have to do. Well, every time we've been going to do it, we haven't had any money. But some government officers came and visited the place and gave us some of the money towards, I think, some $170,000 towards this project, and it's very much used by our youth. Not for me to be diving off that tower, but I've seen young people, I don't know how they do it, at the end of July jumping off that tower, and it's a bit of a joy to see all of the young people really enjoying this. The downside has been the toilets, which could only be described as absolutely rotten. I could use other words, but not here. And to upgrade this and make it accessible and make the paths accessible, particularly to older people who aren't able to access the place at the moment, is a big difference, and it will really add to what's happening in Creswick. So 12 years in the making, and probably should have been done 15 before that. But anyway, we're there now, and we've got a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So I thank you to my colleagues, and thanks to the officers for getting this project up to the stage it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Does anyone have any councillor have any question of the officers about this matter? In which case, I've got an officer's recommendation that Council 1 award contract number HEPBU RFT 2021.150 for the fixed lump sum of $326,481, exclusive of GST, to Forefront Construction. 2, delegates the Chief Executive Officer to sign and seal the contract documents on behalf of Council. And 3, approves Council officers to make variations to the contract within officer financial delegations for each variation up to a cumulative variation amount of 10% of the original contract sum. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Henderson, seconded Councillor Dryly. Does other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Henderson, do you wish to add anything to your comments?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank Councillor Dryly. Is the seconder to you?
Just briefly, Madam Mayor, thank you. Look, it might be just a toilet block in many ways, but it's actually an important part of the infrastructure and a link in the chain in terms of our active lifestyle in Creswick, and the tourist opportunities and improving our facilities are really important, and finishing some of the jobs is really important. It'll be great to get this one finished and see some of the other projects on the go completed as well. So it's great to see this one out for tender.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. Does anyone else wish to speak to it? No one indicated they wanted to speak against it, so I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Halliday, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Hood, Councillor Bray, and myself, Councillor Hewitt. Thank you, councillors. We're now moving on to item 11, active engaged communities, and that's item 11.1, community planning overview. Councillor Halliday, can I ask you to introduce this report, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this item is about community planning. Community planning is a forum for public participation where community members identify their individual community's vision and values, what's important to them, and why they would like to what they would like to see happen in their community into the future. The community planning program has been reviewed and updated and is to be presented to council for adoption in order to support the acknowledgement of the Lionville Community Plan and the creation and implementation of the potential new community plans. I just will add to what the officers have written in here and just explain that the community plan is a little bit different to what we've just been through with the council plan. This is purely driven by the community, and the community actually the actions that have come out of the community plan rather than it being controlled by the Shire. It's supported by the Shire, but it's controlled by the community. So it's can be quite empowering, and yeah, it'd be great to see them updated and rolled out across the Shire. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. Does any councillor have any questions of officers about this report? Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a quick little question. In looking at the report, I noticed that Hepburn seems not to be on the list of communities doing a community plan, but I just wanted to ask the officers, is it the intention that Hepburn and Hepburn Springs are included on that list of communities?
Thanks, Councillor Bray. Ms McCallum, would you like to answer that question?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Bray. The omission of Hepburn Springs from the report is an oversight. I apologise for that. Hepburn and Hepburn Springs were part of the community planning strategy at the end of 2019, early in 2020. There was a community gathering plan for March, excuse me, 2020. However, the onset of COVID did bring that to a halt, and Hepburn Springs were put on hold as a result. I can confirm that Hepburn and Hepburn Springs will be included in the implementation of the community planning program. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Ms McCallum. Councillor Bray, is that
Yes,
fine?
thank you very much, Mr. Callum.
Any other councillors got any questions of Ms McCallum about this matter? In which case, I will read out the officer's recommendation that Council 1 endorses the following community planning documents: A, community planning guidelines; B, community planning policy; C, community planning group charter; D, memorandum of understanding for the community planning groups; 2, endorses the implementation of the community planning program within the community; and 3, endorses community planning development depending on the level of community interest within each community. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Bray. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Halliday. Thank you. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion or against the motion? In which case, Councillor Bray, as the mover of the motion, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is a very exciting project. Community planning puts the vision back in the hands of the community to come up with whatever it is they want to see happening in their communities. And I'll give an example of a community plan that was very successful, and that was Dalesford's last community plan, which saw the community come together around the building of the Dalesford Community Skate Park. Community got together, raised funds. They had sausage sizzles. They approached sponsors. They also, because this was endorsed by council, were able to go further afield and seek funding from the state government, and council also supported it. So it just shows the power of a community plan to be able to really build something amazing based on the needs and the drive within the community. So it's very exciting to see this coming up now, and all our communities are invited to get involved and to participate, either to be on the driving committee or to give feedback into that process to see some fabulous projects coming up.
Thanks, Councillor Bray. Councillor Halliday, as the seconder.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, well, there being no other councillor indicated they want to speak to it, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Henderson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Hood, Councillor Bray, and myself, Councillor Hewitt. I declare that the motion is carried. Thanks, councillors. Item 11.2, the Lionville Community Plan. Councillor Hood, could you introduce this report, please?
Yes, I certainly will, Madam Mayor. And again, it's with great pleasure that I introduce this item, which is asking us as councillors to note the newly developed Lionville Community Plan and the process that the community there undertook to develop it. As my colleague, Councillor Halliday, very nicely summed up, these plans are a great forum for public participation, and certainly the Lionville one was that. I did have the pleasure of sitting in on a few of their early workshops, and they undertook a great process. I would describe these community plans as grassroots democracy in action. The community members were very well guided by council staff, but they developed the goals and the principles and the report themselves. And it is, even though, as was noted earlier, these community plans are quite separate to the council plan, not surprisingly and positively, there is a strong level of compatibility and alignment in the plans. And the pleasing thing is that the community owns these plans, and they now are responsible for implementing, in this case, the 6 goals that are in the plan. So again, I certainly commend to my colleagues the officer's report where we're asked to note the Lionville Community Plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hood. Does anyone have any questions of the officers about the Lionville Community Plan? In which case, I have an officer's recommendation that council acknowledges the Lionville Community Plan and the process undertaken in its development. Have a mover. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a move? Councillor Hood. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Henderson. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Hood, do you wish to add anything?
Nothing further, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Councillor Henderson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, then I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise their hands. Councillor Simpson, Councillor Bray, Councillor Hood, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Henderson, and myself, Councillor Hewitt. I declare that the motion is carried. Item 11.3, the CEO Annual Report to Council on the activities and performance of community asset committees. Mr. Thomas, could you please introduce this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a new report for Council, a new requirement under the New Local Government Act 2020. I'm really pleased to bring it to you. Our community asset committees, and we've got 10 of them, provide a fantastic service for us. They provide the leadership and sort of management over a number of key council assets. And then part of the requirement under the Act, they're now required to put together an annual report, and the CEO to table that in front of councillors tonight. And you'll see in the agenda the various reports that have been provided with the groups. Like many, the last 12 months and longer has been very trying for our community asset committees, particularly in 2 items. One, an implementation in the new Act, and they've transferred from what was known as traditionally Section 86 committees across to these community asset committees. And we really respect the effort that went on during that transition. And obviously COVID, these committees have had to work through challenging circumstances, not being able to meet or having to meet on Zoom. So appreciate the work that's gone into it. These committees have a number of touch points into the organisation, and we're looking to streamline that as much as possible. So as I said, a fair bit of detail of the various reports from the asset committees, but there's an officer's recommendation on page 186 of the council's agenda that council receives and notes the report on the operations of council's community asset committees, known as CACs, as required by the obligations set out in the Local Government Act 2020. Councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Does any councillor have any questions of Mr. Thomas on this matter? In which case, I'm in search of a motion. You've had the officer's recommendation read out to you. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Simpson, seconded Councillor Halliday. Any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Simpson, do you wish to say anything?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Mr. Thomas explained the report very well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Halliday?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, in which case I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Henderson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Hood, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Bray and myself, Councillor Hewitt. The motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Item 11.4, which is the management of the Glen Lyon Dam. Councillor Simpson, would you introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the 17th of August 2020, the Glen Lyon Recreation Reserve Community Asset Committee wrote to Council and the Chief Executive Officer requesting to be granted responsibility for the management of the Glenlyon Dam and surrounds. At the ordinary meeting of Council on the 21st of September 2020, Council passed the following resolution: that Council transfers management of the Glenlyon Dam and surrounds to the Glenlyon Recreation Reserve Community Asset Committee and requests the CEO to determine and execute with the Glenlyon Recreation Reserve Community Asset Committee all responsibilities, delegations and reporting requirements appropriate to the management of the Glenlyon Dam. Since this decision, Council has been contacted by the Friends of the Glenlyon Dam Incorporated 2019, who have requested that Council does not delegate management of the site to the Community Asset Committee and have provided a draft site management proposal for the dam and surrounds. Given that the differing views in the Glenlyon community over appropriate management of this site, it is recommended to Council that consultation with the broader community and further investigation be undertaken before any land management arrangements are entered into as directed by Council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson, for that report. Are there any questions of the officers on this matter? Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is that given that Council have made a decision on this matter, is there a reason why this is coming before us again? Are we able to change that decision in terms of our legal regulations?
I can respond to that. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, no, our decision was actually enacted on when the decision was made. So council officers didn't go forth and implement it. The instrument of delegation wasn't updated or reflected. We sought some legal advice around the provisions of what we can do in this space, and we're able to go out for consultation accordingly.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Is that fine? Thanks, Councillor Bray. Are there any other questions on this matter? In which case, we have an officer's recommendation that I'll just read out, that Council defers the appointment of the Glenlyon Recreation Reserve Committee Asset.
Point of order.
Sorry? Oh, sorry, I didn't see you, Councillor Henderson.
Mayor, I did the wrong thing. I waved my hand instead of putting it up because I couldn't get there so quick.
All right.
Because you were looking down. So, Madam Mayor, my question is, does that mean now, whilst this is in limbo, once we make the decision that we are the managers of the Glenlyon Dam until we make a decision to do something else with it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is correct. Councillor Henderson's comments are true and accurate.
Councillor Henderson, does that answer? Is there anyone else? All right, well, I'll read out the councillor recommendation that Council defers the appointment of the Glenlyon Recreation Reserve Community Asset Committee to manage the Glenlyon Dam until due community consultation that is in line with Council's community engagement policy and further investigation can be undertaken and completed. I am in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Bray, seconded Councillor Dryly. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Bray, do you wish to?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to say that it is appropriate that given that we are looking at reviewing this decision, that we do take it back to the community for wider consultation to get all the views to come up with a recommendation so that council can consider this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dryly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I agree that it is appropriate for us to review this in light of the information that's come forward, and that to take some time and to get community engagement in line with our current policies.
Thanks, Councillor Dryly. No other councillor wishes to speak for the motion. In which case I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, raise your hand. Councillor Bray, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Hood, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Henderson and myself, Councillor Hewitt. The motion is carried. Item 12, 12.1.
Madam Mayor, point of order.
Sorry.
I didn't vote for that, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you did.
No,
All right. So you've abstained.
no, I
Oh,
didn't get the opportunity to vote, to put my hand up against. You didn't call for those against.
Oh, those against the motion? Councillor Henderson, the motion is carried. Thank you. Item 12.1, review of policy 64C, complaints policy. Councillor Dryly, can you introduce this report, please?
Yes, certainly, Madam Mayor. This is a review of policy 64C, which is our complaints policy. And I note that this is a really important part of our community trust, that we have a transparent and fair and forthright policy for people to complain about things that they don't see as right. And that as part of our council, we do have a current policy in place, but this is a requirement under the Local Government Act 2020 that we prepare and adopt a complaints policy by the 31st of December 2021. And that there are some new things that are coming into play under this Act. So in particular, Council's current approach to complaints handling is compliant with the Ombudsman's recommendations. However, a shift in the definition of a complaint will require some adjustment to the processing of complaints, and it is likely to lead to a notable increase in the number of complaints reported on. So that in itself might seem like a bad thing, but if we are changing the way people are complaining and feel that they're going to get a fair hearing, then there's nothing wrong with an increase in complaints if people are trusting in the process and they feel like their complaints are going to be taken seriously. So in particular, I'd just like to mention what the definition of how the definition of complaint is being expressed by the Victorian Ombudsman. So an expression, a complaint is considered to be an expression of dissatisfaction about an action, decision, policy or service that relates to council staff, including the CEO, a council contractor or the council as a decision-making body, not individual councillors who are subject to different processes. The Ombudsman also encourages councils to put aside the merit of the complaint or issue, how the matter will be resolved, and any perceived motivation the complainant may have in handling complaints. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. Does anyone have a question of the officer in this matter? Councillor Bray?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, I think this is good that we are reviewing our complaints policy. I suppose it's the question around the definition of what is a complaint. I think most people understand that if they write, this is a formal complaint, that is a complaint. Could I ask the officers to explain how this new policy is a bit different in terms of the way people word their complaints?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Complaints can now be received through just the mere notation that there is a dissatisfaction with the service. So that could be through our customer service centres, a verbal complaint made or in discussion. So our officers are going to be trained to be able to capture that information and then work towards resolving that complaint accordingly. Quite different to our old procedure, which was a written formal complaint.
Thank you. Councillor Bray, have another question?
So thank you, Ms. Fort. Does this mean that we would be expecting to see a large increase in the number of complaints coming to council because of the new way they're being defined, rather than perhaps it's just through the definition of the word?
Thank you. Through you, councillors. That's correct. So like any government agency, they will see an influx if their complaint definition was different. It's a good thing. It means that we're able to broaden our understanding of what concerns are of the community. So we will see an influx, and so our data will reflect that accordingly. So, you know, through reporting and the like, if there is an increase, It's not necessarily that council has all of a sudden become, you know, very detrimental or terrible in our actions or our conduct. It is that the definition is broadened out and we're capturing a breadth of matters that are concerns for constituents and hoping to resolve them accordingly.
Councillor Bray. It's very good to hear, Ms Forte, that it won't mean that we suddenly have become very poor in handling matters. Has anyone else got any questions of Ms Forte? No. So the officer's recommendation is that council adopts the drafts complaints policy developed in line with the Victorian Ombudsman Good Practice Guide and to fulfil the requirements set out in the Local Government Act 2020. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Mover, Councillor Hood. Seconded, Councillor Dryly. Does any other councillor wish to speak for this motion or against the motion? Councillor Hood.
Nothing further to add, Madam Mayor. I think the subject's been adequately covered.
Thank you. Councillor Dryly.
Not much more to add, Madam Mayor, other than the distinction between a service request and a complaint is teased out in this, and that there are important distinctions to be made there, but that also that officers will have a set of guidelines that will be a lot clearer in terms of how to decide when a complaint is a complaint and when it's a service request, so that there's a clear delegation in play.
Thanks, Councillor Dryly. So does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? In which case I'll put the motion. All those in favour, raise your hand. Councillor Henderson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Hewitt, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Hood, Councillor Simpson and Councillor Bray. The motion is carried. We're now moving on to item 12.2, adoption of local law number 2 guidelines. Councillor Bray, would you like to introduce this report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to produce this report. It's the adoption of local laws number 2 guidelines. And this report has been prepared in response to Council's resolution at its February 2020 and July 2021 ordinary meetings, where it resolved to commence its reference groups for the local law number 2 for the following subjects: planting on nature strips, salvaging at waste transfer stations, and collection of firewood. This entire process was highly consultative in response to the community concerns and frustrations raised in response to the original local law number 2 review process in 2019, which was adopted in February 2020. In July 2020, the local law number 2 reference groups commenced with an expression of interest process where community members were asked to nominate their interest in the project. And 3 separate reference groups were formalised, and 3 sessions for each group have been facilitated by consultants Chatterbox, with officers and a councillor at each session. The biggest issue identified in this process was ensuring that community comments and development of draft guidelines were respected, whilst ensuring that the guidelines were compliant and in accordance with relevant legislation. And a separate focus of this process was ensuring that council rebuilt relationships with the community that may have been damaged through previous processes. And it is the officer's belief that this was successfully achieved. The draft guidelines have been prepared by each of the reference group and are now presented to councillors for our consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Does any councillor have any questions of the officers on this matter? No?
I have a question, yes.
Right. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question regarding the salvaging guidelines. I noticed in the report that it says that can be anticipated there will be some capital investment required to set up a self-serve area as detailed in the guidelines. However, significant costs will likely to be also extra staff time required to stock, sort, maintain and assist customers in this area. My question is, what changes will happen to the operations at transfer stations in order to implement these guidelines? for example, setting up a self-serve area. How will operations change to respond to these guidelines?
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Is there an officer to respond to that? Mr. Lucas, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In response to that, I guess the three guidelines that have been established will be implemented now and will help build transparency and also manage expectations between community, understanding what council is looking for, and also supporting council in the decision making around what is permitted, because people will know what council is looking for and will work accordingly. So it will bring a level of predictability, if you like, to what can and can't be allowed in each of the three guidelines. Specifically around transfer stations, I probably need to be clear that this wasn't intended to be a service review of the way our transfer stations operate, but clearly it has identified a number of opportunities, and where there is major capital investment required, that will need to be referred through to council budget development, and it will no doubt come up as a major issue for consideration in the development of the Sustainable Hepburn Strategy, which will also guide what I would foresee as transformational change in our waste management and our transfer station facilities more broadly. And so what's come out of these guidelines will simply feed into that.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Councillor Bray, that's sufficient.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there, Councillor Dryly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to ask Mr. Lucas about the process that's been involved here, and it's been a bit of a change in direction for us in terms of the community engagement of this, and also to note the controversy that led up to this, these working groups around the local laws in just prior to the elections. Just perhaps, Mr. Lucas, could you just, I understand it's been quite a positive experience in terms of officers and community engagement. Could you reflect on that at all?
I guess what I'll say through you, Madam Mayor, is that it certainly has been a positive experience, and it's been a respectful process by all stakeholders involved. And I won't comment or go back over the history of the development of the local law review back in 2019 and 20. Suffice to say, there were learnings coming out of that process, and if we were doing it again tomorrow, we'd probably tackle a number of elements a little differently. This process with the guidelines was also supported with, a reasonable cost implication with the appointment of an external facilitator to guide that process, which I think was also a major contributor to the success of the three guidelines that were developed and presented tonight to council.
Thanks, Mr. Lucas. Councillor Dryly?
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions of Mr. Lucas? In which case, I have an officer's recommendation that I will read out. You've got a question, Councillor Bray? No. That council endorses the local law number 2 guidelines as attached for planting on nature strips, salvaging at waste transfer stations, collection of firewood. 2, recommends an annual review be undertaken of the guidelines. And 3, writes to all of the community reference group members, thanking them for their efforts and involvement in developing the guidelines, advising them of the outcome. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Bray, have a motion you want, and Councillor Henderson. Councillor Bray, do you have a motion you wish to move?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, my hand slipped and I jumped the gun, but I would like to put a motion that
Right.
Okay, no, it's all right, it's good.
Yep.
Council endorses local law number 2 guidelines as attached for planting on nature strips, salvaging at waste transfer stations and collection of firewood, and recommends that an annual review be undertaken of the guidelines. And 3, delegates the Chief Executive Officer the ability to reduce the fees and charges for paint drop-off to 0 and to change the salvaging guidelines to state paint drop-off is free, subject to a suitable paint disposal scheme being implemented. And 4, rights to all of the community reference group members, thanking them for their efforts and involvement in developing the guidelines and advising them of the outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. For those who are watching, you'll note that Councillor Bray's motion differs in one part from the officer's recommendation. Councillors, do I have a seconder for Councillor Bray's motion? Councillor Henderson. Right. Have anyone else who wishes to speak to the motion? Councillor Simpson and Councillor Dryly as well. Can anyone wish to speak against the motion? So Councillor Bray, as the mover, would you like to start the debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Mr. Lucas for his comments about the process. It was a terrific process. I was very fortunate to be part of it. We were asked to, all the community and all the reference group members were asked to fill in a survey afterwards, and the results were really positive. People were very satisfied with the ability to come together and share ideas and collaborate and learn from each other. We also received verbal feedback that this is one of the most fun and interactive sessions that they've ever had with council to date. So I would agree that this has been a very important, successful process in rebuilding the relationship between community and council over the local laws issues, and it has provided a really great model for working groups going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Henderson?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I too was lucky like Councillor Bray, and I was part of the salvaging firewood, which at the outset looked quite a difficult situation. It didn't look like we're able to salvage from anywhere due to the road rules and all sorts of other constraints. But people on all of the groups that I've spoken to have said that it was a learning experience for them as well as the council, because they became more aware of what some of the constraints are on council and how council has to be the manager of the roadsides and the tips and the roadways. So all in all, I think our community, as well as the council, has a better understanding of the community and the way they feel passionately about things. But I think the community at large has a greater understanding of why the council sometimes says you can't do something. It's different to say you can't do it, or we'll tell you why we can't do it. And I think that's been a learning experience and a good one and a very positive outcome. So I think all of the people who participated in this, not just the people on the groups either, there was a lot of input that those people got from the community. They went out and I do know that people went out and asked the community what they thought to take that back to the group. So I think very successful, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Henderson. Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of comments. I'd just like to thank Councillor Bray for giving the people in the community the opportunity of buying cheap paint. And I also am glad, thanks to Councillor Henderson, that we have the collection of firewood guidelines. And I would recommend anyone that's thinking of collecting firewood in the Shire to have a look at the guidelines. It's going to mean that people will need a permit to collect wood, and they're going to have to register their car registration. And there's going to be some roads in the Shire for environmental reasons that wood can't be collected on, and those roads will be named. So I think it's a wonderful move in the direction of giving people guidelines, knowing what they can do, what they can't do. So thank you, Councillors Bray and Henderson.
Thanks, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Dryly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to everyone involved in this project. It really seems to be a really positive outcome all round, and in particular as a council initiative for us to listen to our community and to respond appropriately and to involve the community in an empowered way, so that they do feel ownership over the outcome of these working groups, and with the potential for an ongoing involvement, perhaps depending on what's to come out of this. But also looking at the core values that we're dealing with in these three different areas around sustainability and community resilience. We're supporting the sharing economy potentially through local food, strengthening with Verge Gardening. We're looking at the circular economy model through salvaging at the waste transfer station. And we're looking at community resilience in terms of collecting firewood in a sustainable and biodiverse sensitive way. So they're really key things in terms of our coming out of our council vision and plan, I think. So it's been a big win, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. Being no further debate, Councillor Bray.
If I could just take my right of reply, I just wanted to call out.
I'm happy for you to do it, but right of reply is usually when someone's brought up something controversial to what you've said, but go ahead.
Thank you. I just also wanted to call out the efforts of our managers and the team, Bronwyn Southey, putting in a huge amount of effort here to oversee these 3 working groups, and all of the officers who contributed to it. It's been a huge effort, and I do want to acknowledge their openness to the process, and we've all learnt a lot from each other. So thanks again.
Thanks, Councillor Bray, and I note my indulgence. So there being no further debate, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Henderson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Hood, Councillor Simpson and Councillor Bray, and myself, Councillor Hewitt. So the motion is carried, and I'd just like to add my comments. Thank you to the officers, thank you to the members of the community, and thank you to the councillors who were involved in this process, which by all accounts has been very positive and achieved an excellent outcome for all involved. Our next item is item 12.3, which is the annual report 2020 to 2021. And that's me introducing this report. The purpose of the report is for Council to receive and note the 2020-2021 annual report. Council is required to prepare this annual report each financial year that details the performance of the organisation. This report is required to be submitted to the Minister for Local Government and received and noted by Council. Council officers have prepared the annual report, which is attached for the 2020-2021 financial year. And I would just like to take this opportunity to thank both the officers for their work over this past financial year. It's not been an easy year, as Mr. Thomas alluded to, with the COVID restrictions, with the storm in June. There's also been a change of council, so it would only be fair, it's only right to acknowledge the previous councillors as well, who were active in the first half of the financial year with this report. And so even with the difficulties of COVID lockdown and the extreme weather event, there have been a number of achievements. There's been the finalising of the Hepburn Together project with the Community Engagement Project, the opening of the upgraded Clunes Town Hall. There's been the payback or payoff of the lobbying and advocating to state government, which has meant that there's been more than $8.5 million towards important projects that which include the grant for the Hammond Park Trailhead, the Trentham Community Hub, the Trentham Sports Ground Reserve per million, improvement to the Wombat Hill Botanic Gardens, and a working museum at Bellardo Station. So right across the Shire, communities will benefit from the work that was done last year. In particular, I would like to call out the opening of the Frontiers Wars Memorial, which was the first in Australia to recognise the impact of colonisation and dispossession on our traditional owners. I think I would hope that you all support the motion and acknowledge the work that's been done by our very adaptable and hardworking staff, by the former councillors, and by the community. So has anyone's got any questions of officers at this point? In which case the officer's recommendation is that council receives and pardon? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hood.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I realise you're looking at many screens at once. I do have a question of the officers, if I may, on the annual report. And it's just to, I'd like an explanation as to the unusual timing and sequence of events, because I am noting, if I'm reading the report correctly, that this annual report for 2021 was sent to the Minister a few days ago on the 15th of October. And here we are on the 19th of October deciding whether or not to adopt the report. That is sort of perhaps an unusual sequence of events. And leading from that would be my rhetorical question that where would council be left in the event that we either chose not to adopt this report tonight or to make substantial changes to it, given that it's already been provided to the Minister?
So, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to take that one. So thank you, Councillor Hood, for your question. You're right, there is an abnormality with the timing of the annual report, and consistent across not just Hepburn, but all 79 local government entities. The annual report is required to be to the Minister usually by the 30th of September, and it's really done to get the annual report finalised as soon as possible after the annual audit and financial statements. In this case, given COVID, there had been an extension to the process in terms of timing to be allowing a bit later than the 30th of September, but it is really normal, and I suppose that's why the officer's recommendation is to receive and note rather than adoption of the annual report. And I suppose it's really because the annual report is not a decision-making tool. It really is a snapshot of the achievements for councillors and the organisation for the year. So there's not so much a decision for council and councillors to make, it's just receiving and noting it. Of course, if councillors didn't go through that process, we work through what does that mean in terms of the Minister and potentially an update. But really common for councillors can be rest assured that this is a common process, and that, as I said, it is for council to receive a note, and really this then becomes the increased sort of formal notification. Do some sort of engagement, Facebook posts, and really let the community know about the annual report.
Councillor Hood.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Thomas, for the explanation. I should have said at the outset that my question was posed certainly not as a criticism of officers or management for having submitted it. I now understand that it's a nuance of the local government sector, and thank you for the explanation. Although I still note that we are deciding whether or not we adopt this report as a fair and accurate depiction of the achievements of the past year. So we are faced with making a decision, but yeah, I find it somewhat of an oddity, but it is what it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hood and Mr. Thomas. The officer's recommendation is that council receives and notes the 2020-2021 annual report. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover? Councillor Simpson, and a seconder? Councillor Hood. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Simpson.
Madam Mayor.
Do you wish to speak to the motion as the mover?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, I can't hear.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Hood, do you wish to speak?
Only to note that hopefully when we provide and produce next year's report, that the timing and circumstances might be somewhat more difficult in that we may have adopted our own report before we send it off to the minister. I think that would be a better outcome, but whether or not that's within our control remains to be seen.
Thank you. Councillor Bray.
Sorry, I missed my moment to speak for the motion.
I am being indulgent.
I'm sorry. I do want to thank all the officers and our CEO for preparing this report. It's a great and riveting read of all the achievements over the last 12 months, and it's actually quite incredible to see what actually has happened. We were all new councillors this time last year, not even perhaps, and it's amazing to see the work that has come through. We can't, of course, take credit for that work. That's a lot of it led by staff. So I just wanted to commend the report, to look at it as a great snapshot of what's happened over the past 12 months.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. And I know it's not actually the last 12 months, it's the financial year to June end of the financial year, and from the 1st of July 2020. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Henderson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Hood, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Bray, and myself, Councillor Hewitt. The motion is carried. And I'll just note that the annual report for 2020, 1st of July 2020 to the 30th of June 2021, will be available on the Hepburn website from tomorrow. Next item is 12.4, council meeting dates for 2022. Councillor Halliday, can I ask you to introduce this report, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The council meeting dates for 2022 has been prepared by the Director of Organisational Services. The purpose of this report is for councillors to consider the dates for council ordinary meetings in the 2022 calendar year. At this stage, the COVID-19 Omnibus Emergency Measures and Other Acts Amendment Act 2020, the COVID-19 Omnibus Act, allows virtual council meeting provisions to remain in place until the 26th of April 2022. The provision of virtual council meetings is also set out in the Ministerial Good Practice Guideline number 1, virtual meetings. An extension to hold council meetings virtually has been extended to the 26th of April 2022. Under this legislation and guided by the Good Practice Guidelines, so I don't know whether I need to read out the next bits. Apologies for the pause. Council may elect to set meeting dates for the year and make a later determination on the location of meetings as the COVID-19 pandemic and related restrictions evolve. For those of you who have the agenda in front of you, the dates are very similar to the dates that we've had for 2021. Which is the third Tuesday of the month on the majority of months, except in April where it's pushed back a week for Easter, and in November where it's been pushed back a week due to the Cup holiday. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Halliday. Has anyone got any questions of officers on this matter? Okay, so I've got an officer's recommendation, which I will read out, but it is somewhat lengthy. That council adopt the following dates as the schedule for ordinary meetings of council in 2022 with a commencing time of 5:30 p.m. Please note that that's a half hour earlier to what's happened this year. That's Tuesday the 15th of February, Tuesday the 15th of March, Wednesday the 20th of April, Tuesday the 17th of May, Tuesday the 21st of June, Tuesday the 19th of July, Tuesday the 16th of August, Tuesday the 20th of September, Tuesday the 18th of October, Tuesday the 22nd of November, Tuesday the 20th of December, all of 2022. 2, may elect to hold ordinary council meetings virtually in accordance with the COVID-19 Omnibus Emergency Measure and Other Acts Amendment Act 2020 in line with state government COVID-19 restrictions of the day. Determines to hold the ordinary council meetings in person when COVID-19 restrictions allow at the Daylesford Town Hall, 76 Vincent Street, Daylesford. 4, adopts the following date for the statutory meeting of council in 2022 with a commencing time of 5:30 p.m. at the Daylesford Town Hall, 76 Vincent Street, Daylesford, which is a meeting to elect the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, Tuesday the 15th of November 2022. 5, places a public notice in local newspapers to advertise the dates and locations for meeting of council 2022. And 6, makes the council meeting dates and location for the 2022 calendar year available on council's website. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Simpson moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Halliday. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Simpson, as the mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Briefly, Madam Mayor, thank you very much to the officers for organising these dates and organising us all for next year. And as Madam Mayor pointed out, we will be starting the meetings at 5:30 p.m. instead of 6 p.m. So hopefully you'll still all be able to attend at that time. If not, the meetings are all recorded, whether they're live or not meetings. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Halliday.
No, I don't think I need to add anything. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right. There being no further debate, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Councillor Simpson, Councillor Bray, Councillor Hood, Councillor Dryelly, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Simpson and Councillor Anderson and myself, Councillor Hewitt. The motion is carried. Item 13.1 is the closure of meeting to members of the public. Councillors, I acknowledge that there are 3 confidential matters the council will need to consider tonight, outlined in the confidential ordinary council meeting agenda for the 21st of September 2021. Councillors, I'm seeking a motion to close the meeting to the public pursuant to section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020. Please note that should a motion be carried to move the meeting into confidential, then the meeting will cease to be live streamed and this meeting will no longer be available for the community to view and or record. Councillors, I'm now seeking a mover and a seconder to move the motion to close the meeting to the public. The recommendation is that in accordance with section 66(1) and 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020, the meeting be closed to members of the public for the consideration of the following confidential items. 1, the lease of 25 Fraser Street, Clunes, which is the former Senior Citizen Centre. This agenda item is confidential information for the purposes of section 31A of the Local Government Act because it's council business information, which is information that would prejudice council's position in commercial negotiations if prematurely released. Section 3(1)(a), and also that the ground applies because the agenda item concerns the progress of ongoing contractual negotiations that would, if prematurely released, diminish the strength of council position in those negotiations. The item also contains details of the potential market rental value of property. So in fact, there appears to just be 1 confidential matter, not the 3 that I initially said. I apologise for that. I'm in search of a motion. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Simpson moved, Councillor Halliday seconded. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion, apart from the mover and seconder? Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Councillor Simpson, do you wish to speak to the motion as the mover? Thank you. Councillor Halliday, do you wish to?
I thank you, Madam Mayor.
Then I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Henderson, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Dryly, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Bray, Councillor Hood and myself, Councillor Hewitt. The motion is carried. For those members of the public who are watching the live stream, this means that the council meeting is now closed at 8:17 p.m. Thank you for your attendance if you're watching. Thank you, councillors, for your contribution tonight and for your cooperation in trialling the new way of presenting reports, which I appreciate. I want to thank you for your cooperation in that matter. And Mr. White, if we now close the meeting, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just stop the live stream.